Welcome to Interesting Enough. He is Trey. I am Nolan. Thank you guys so much for joining us once again. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, thank you. Give us a like, subscribe. We're on Apple, Spotify, YouTube. It's been a couple weeks. Trey, man, what's going on? How you feeling?
Man, I'm feeling great, man. It's been a couple weeks, like you said, but it's been an exciting couple weeks because right now NCAA has just released, and we haven't played that game in over 10 years, so I'm just super excited.
Listen, NCAA releasing is a spiritual moment. And listen, stick around. We're going to talk about Summer League and, the NBA draft. We haven't been on the podcast since then. We'll talk about a little Team USA. So we'll get to some of that stuff. But Trey, when I got NCAA, I could cry. I could cry. I mean, 2014 was the last NCAA. I don't even think I actually had NCAA 14. I was thinking about that too. I remember playing it, but I don't even know if I actually owned that one. But I probably did.
I know I did.
Yeah, I don't think I did, but I definitely played it. But we're talking over 10 years for this game. All the anticipation for it, and the game came out. Quick update: servers down. Servers down. We knew this was happening. I think I saw a screenshot. It was at one time, I think yesterday. I don't know what the time was because the game, what it did is it didn't actually release till 4 o'clock Eastern. So I looked on my game system, 4:01. My friends list everybody on it. And I know the people that's not off work yet. I just work from home, so people that's not from work yet didn't even get to play it. But servers are down, so you couldn't do anything online. But just seeing the videos of other people playing it, me playing it, I was so happy. I don't have a bunch of takeaways from the gameplay outside of, I know you and I talk about is it comparison to Madden, right? That's all we care about.
Yeah.
Gameplay feels initially better. I'll say that. There's a couple things that's overpowered in the game. They have one juke move that you're going to see that you basically it's going to be really, really hard to tackle somebody. It's kind of like every year in Madden where you had one move, the hit stick was overpowered one year. There was a juke another year. There was, the defense with the interceptions. It does seem like the mechanics of the game, they put a lot of work into it where there's just not going to be a lot of fluky business. Still a video game. You're still going to get some fluky stuff. But, generally speaking, if you make the right play, skill-wise, you're going to be able to make the play. But I also saw situations where I was trying to do a little bit of the passing and figure that out. You can miss a wide open guy because you don't have the skill to do it. So there's some things you got to figure out. But the best part about the game is what everyone was looking forward to and what we remember the game as, and it's the aesthetics. I mean, I tried a couple of different universities just to see the walkouts and stuff, and to see how they would, do just night games, day games, rivalry games. I just dabbled, and it was just great. And it honestly feels with the presentation of it, with the announcing, because I noticed there was different announcers, if it's a big game or not. I noticed that it feels like college football, and it almost makes me miss college football right now. I would kind of want to get off the game and watch college football coming up in a couple of months. So it gave me that feeling. So that was the feeling that we remembered, you know what I mean, as the game was growing up. Because you correct me if I'm wrong, NCAA, I know we were younger, but it wasn't really the gameplay that captivated us as much as the moments that it felt like we had with it. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, it definitely wasn't the gameplay. If you were a gameplay aficionado, you probably wouldn't have Madden. But like you said, it was just the moments in the environment they set up where it kind of just felt rambunctious. It felt like you were literally playing in a college environment. That's what I think so many people like about college football in general. That's what I like about it. That's why I prefer it over the NFL, just because of the environment.
Yeah, so it's definitely worth it. It's definitely worth the game. I know we'll probably get some online dynasties and stuff, going. And I've already saw some of the funny clips of, they made the game realistic. I'm gonna just put it to people that way. For people that haven't watched or haven't played it yet, I'm not gonna ruin too many things for you. But when you are making your, road to glory and making your career, I mean, it's realistic. Down to you got to have a certain GPA. Down to you sending text messages to girls for parties. I mean, there's a whole situation. So we always complain about these video games and oh, this wouldn't happen. That wouldn't happen. This isn't realistic. That isn't realistic. Oh, it's realistic. They get into the nitty gritty. If you want to be a real life college athlete or see how it feels like, you're going to get that experience with the game. So I'm happy about it. It seems like they put in a lot of work for this game, and rightly so, right? If you don't have a game for 10 years, they know over 10 years, they know how much people were anticipating this game. and all accounts, it seems like it's really, really good so far. But again, we're in the honeymoon phase too. So just
Yeah.
like anything else, we're gonna get some complaints. I'm sure we're gonna get some gameplay with some crappy stuff happening, but I'm not gonna complain about it. Even if there was, and let me be real, even if there was some things I didn't like about the gameplay, I'm just happy it's back. I'm not gonna be too nitpicky right now. Like even if it was like, I'm not gonna be too nitpicky. I'm just glad the game is back. So we definitely gonna touch on that a little bit more. And I think Trey, another thing too is I think I'm gonna get more excited to play it more as we get closer to college football season, and then when college football season starts. Because I'm kind of like that. I was always kind of like that, even gaming when I was younger. It's like, hey, if it's football season, I kind of want to play a football game. If it's basketball season, I want to play basketball. I kind of get in that mood as well too. So, but we got a lot to talk about with football later on. It's the off season. I mean, we can sit here and talk about Brandon Ayuk requesting a trade, but like nobody really cares about that right now. We'll talk about him when he actually gets on the team. Let's talk about some NBA because before we left, we were talking about how underwhelming a draft was. I think we did a draft preview. We've seen some guys get drafted. We've seen some summer league games, and we know there's some summer league superstars, so we don't want to, you know, go overboard or crazy. But I wanted to hear from you because we haven't talked about the draft at all on or off the air. Any takeaways from maybe draft guys, whether it's sleepers or maybe some guys in summer league that surprised you, didn't surprise you? Like, what are you maybe keeping an eye out for? It's not a lot to talk about in July for basketball, but anything that's catching your eye at all.
I think I just want to go back to the draft real quick. The one thing that kind of caught my eye was just I was just really surprised that the Spurs did not keep Rob Dillingham. I know they
Mm,
needed another scorer, another point guard, and maybe Rob Dillingham's not your traditional point guard, but how the position is played today, he plays it like how you would want a point guard to play. And I'm just really surprised that they didn't decide to pair him up with Wemby. So I'm kind of interested to see what the Spurs are
mm,
have in mind going forward.
mm.
We know they got Chris Paul, but I mean, where that's for half a year before they trade him, maybe a full year if that, and that's it. So I'm just kind of curious to where they go. But overall with the summer league, like you said, it's kind of been. I'm not gonna call it a weak draft. I think we've said that enough, but it's not the most enticing draft, and I think that's kind of carried over to the summer league. Like for crying out loud in the summer league, we're talking about Bronny more than anybody else. So I think that kind of signifies where we at right now in the summer league. Like it's not the greatest summer league of all time. You don't have a Zion or a Wemby out there.
Yeah, I mean, summer league basketball wasn't great in general, even when those guys were out there, if we being real. so,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
so so it wasn't ever great. I wanted to touch on the Chris Paul thing though, real quick, because we didn't really get to talk since then. And I guess we should probably talk about a little Paul George too at some point. But I was talking to our mutual friend Akeem, and I was talking about how the Spurs should get a point guard like everyone else. I mean, this wasn't like breaking news. And I actually used Chris Paul as an example. I was like, hey, if they can get a point guard like that, and I literally said, I know they're not going to get him. He's too old. They're probably looking to go young. And they got him. And I absolutely love this for Wimby. And I think he should stay for the entire year, regardless of how their season goes, because with Chris Paul, we know he wins wherever he goes. So they're going to be better. How much better, we don't know. But to get a guy like that to learn how to play, I mean, it's not there can't be a better situation if you're Wimby to play with a guy like that is looking to do nothing more than just to set you up for success. So I'm really happy about that for the Spurs. Um, I'm not a big Rob Dillingham guy though, Trey. I'm gonna be real. I'm not saying he's gonna be like bad or anything like that. I'm not saying he's gonna be a bust. I like his game. I like, you know, I don't want to, maybe I want to call it energy, but like the spark, right? The spark with the speed and quickness, and it's great for the NBA game. But I just don't necessarily see him as a lead guard on a really, really good team. And again, I'm hedging my bets early. I'm not saying I could be definitely wrong, and we can pull this clip up or whatever the case may be. But I'm just, if I was a Spurs at 4, I would have done. I'm not a big Steven Castle guy, but I can see what he can be in the league, and we know he's going to be able to defend multiple positions no matter what. And like, I'd rather have a guy that I know can be a part of the core than a guy that I'm taking like a real, real shot on, but I don't necessarily have to. And they did draft a point guard in the second round. That's a pass first guy, international guy. So we'll see how that works out as well too. So they did at least adjust, excuse me, the position at some point. So I'm not mad at that with the Spurs. Um, Here's what I would say in terms of, overall with the summer league. I think. and this isn't really based solely on summer league. This is just kind of based on where he fell. And you and I kind of think we've both shared how much we like this guy, but Matas Bazelis, Trey,
Hmm.
listen, he got drafted 11 to Chicago. And again, if you pay attention to the mock drafts, like I know you do, he was a guy who was really like projected a top five, top six guy for majority of the year. And then he kind of fell, didn't shoot that great. It's just one of those things where he kind of fell in the draft. And I think even watching the draft, I was shocked that he got out of the top 10. And I knew there wasn't a world that he was going to fall to 15 to the Heat, but I was like, man, if they ever let him fall to the Heat, and for you as a Magic fan, I'm sure you felt the same way. I'm sure you didn't even consider this before the draft that he was even going to be there. But like, hey, that would have been a great scenario for a team, one of those teams, right? Like a playoff team to grab him. But let me tell you something. That guy at that size with his skill, I don't know if he's gonna be a star player, but I would not be surprised if we end up looking back on this draft and he ends up being the best guy in this draft. Like it would not shock me at all because of his skill, the dog mentality. Even the stuff he was saying about Ricochet before the draft. I know that can get a little cheesy with the fake confidence, but I just don't think it's fake confidence. And he doesn't just talk about it, he like plays with that. And that's just something I like. So Bazelis is a guy I'm keeping an eye out for. But yeah, I mean, I know you liked him a lot too.
No, I definitely liked him. I was hoping that he could fall to Orlando. I mean, it wasn't really feasible, but I was just hoping in some world that he did.
That would have been
But I
insane if
really,
you guys had like 16 or whatever he felt. That'd have been crazy. Like if he felt there.
man, if we had him, I'm talking about our future. We might have had the brightest future in the league. But not to
Yeah.
get lost in that, I just have to say, like you said, just to be able to move as fluid as he is and be able to be the passer that he is and handle the basketball at his size where he looks like a legit 6'10", it's pretty amazing to see. So I think he's going to be a really good player in the league. He just has to work on the jump shot. It can be kind of iffy. Like I've watched enough of his summer league games where I've seen him airball a couple of times. I'm like, okay, he's gonna have to work on it.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, his game is. I think what I like about him is a lot of what he does well translates. Right. Like that's what you kind of look for. Like, yeah, he definitely has some flaws, but the things that he does well, we can see him doing that well in the league. Now I gotta be selfish to talk about the Heat a little bit. I haven't been the biggest Khalil Ware fan. I'm gonna just say it like that. Now he's got some spurts where he's played pretty well, but this whole thing where people think he's gonna be this stretch five and like he can shoot the ball. I watched the first summer league game, the California Classic Trey. First two threes he shot, smack nothing but backboard. Now I'm not. No, look, he could be nervous and all that stuff. I just, I don't know. You tell me if I'm overreacting to this, but he gets drafted. He's very excited, right? Like as everyone is, he gets interviewed, and now I think he was asked some sort of question about, playing with, guys on the team and like Bam, and he was like, "Yeah, this is gonna be great. Like me at the five and Bam at the four." And I was like, "You at the five and Bam at the four?" I was like, "Wait, you don't think?" I was like, "Brother, you coming off the bench? Like I don't know what you think." Like now I'm not saying he was like proclaiming that he was a starter, but I was like, "Oh, like." Maybe he thinks like we're drafting like another like star player. I was like, no, like we want you to be a role player. We want you to be Derek Lively. Like so, and he certainly came out in the first couple of summer league games as a guy that was like trying to establish himself as like a star player or the best player out there. And I'm fine with that aggressiveness because that could definitely change when you go to the NBA with the real NBA team and you'll see where shots are allocated. But the parts I liked about his game, the athleticism, the defense, that stuff was cool. The effort looked okay for the most part. But I was happy to see, that he's playing pretty well for the most part. But that's just a pick I'm not really sold on. I mean, I don't know if you got a chance to see your Magic pick, De Silva, if you liked him at all, but how you feeling from the little bit that you did get to catch?
I have had a chance to see De Silva, and he surprised me. I didn't expect him to be this NBA ready, especially with his jump shot. And he's looked good. But again, when we first opened up this conversation, you said yourself, you don't read much into summer league, and I'm the same way. I don't read much into the summer league because you never know what you're going to have. Like Mario Hazonia, when we got him, I think it was he looked
Sorry.
amazing in summer league. Like he looked like he was going to be a star, and then he was out of the league within like 5 or 6 years. So like I don't read much into the summer league. I don't.
I agree. We don't even have to talk about summer league too much more because we got to see these guys play real games. But What I am going to read into, Trey, is some Olympics. And Team USA, as we're recording this, they've played 2 exhibition matches. They beat Canada, had a close call against Australia, won both games. I have one thing that's glaring about the roster, but I just want to throw it to you first before I kind of get what I want to get off my chest. How are you feeling about the roster? Anything that stood out to you? I know they're just trying different lineups. It just anything that you want to cross the board with Team USA.
No, I think the first thing that I had to bring up when you mentioned the roster is just that I don't understand the Kawhi Leonard for Derek White situation. I guess I could
Mm,
understand why Kawhi Leonard is not there. You maybe I think we talked about it off the podcast. Maybe his leg just didn't respond well to the training. Maybe he was just too out of shape and they knew he didn't have enough time to be NBA ready for the Olympics by the time that comes around. Maybe they were talking about load management, him and his team, and they were just like, we don't want to deal with it. Like, there's some legitimate reasons why I could see him not being on the team, but to have him replaced by Derek White when you did have somebody like Kyrie Irving or Jalen Brown, I didn't quite understand that. I don't know. Maybe you have a different perspective that I'm willing to hear, but like, I just didn't understand that.
well, I got some thoughts on the Kawhi thing, but in terms of who the replacement should be, it was definitely not going to be Kyrie Irving, and I wouldn't have co-signed it. And this has nothing to do with Kyrie Irving's talent. I just don't think it fits with this team and what they're trying to do. They don't really need another guy that's just going to do a bunch of dribbling and like to creating. They got enough creators. They're trying to get, if you notice, they're trying to get guys that are running, push the pace, um, excellent shooters. Now Kyrie is an excellent shooter, but they're trying to be really just like long and athletic as well too. And Kyrie doesn't really fit that, and they don't really need another small guard. Now Kyrie, to his credit, he doesn't have to dribble all day. He can be a spot up shooter. I just don't think it fits with this team, especially if you're going to replace a Kawhi Leonard who, even if he wasn't going to be a starter, he was going to be a significant part of the team and playing in any rotation because of how great he is. You want to have a guy that can at least mimic some of the things that he can do. I thought Jalen Brown should have been the pick. Now, obviously, I don't think he should have been Finals MVP. However, considering he was Finals MVP, if you to have the Finals MVP sitting there that's American that didn't get picked for this team originally, and then you do have an opportunity to replace an injured guy with him, also a guy who is a similar build to Kawhi. He is Kawhi light, right? Everything Kawhi does, Jalen Brown could do. Some of which Jalen Brown could do maybe even better at this point in his career, just because he's healthier most of the time. So it seemed like honestly a perfect fit to just slot Jalen Brown right in. The only nod I can say to the Derek White thing is he has previous Team USA experience, so he can kind of be thrown right into the fire and kind of figure things out. He's not a guy that's going to be expected to even play a lot, so if he doesn't play, it's not going to really be a big deal. If I'm Jalen Brown, if I'm going to like sacrifice my summer and get called up late, I'm going to kind of want to play. And that wasn't necessarily going to be a guaranteed thing, and then that may even look worse, him not playing that many minutes coming off of the great season he had. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I guess, but I mean, that sounds good and all until we get into a tight situation where maybe, we do like Embiid is hurt or LeBron twist the ankle, whatever the case may be. And now you need another player that can go get you a bucket or that can guard along the wing. And
Yep.
Jalen Brown, he can guard the 2 through 4 and he can get you a bucket whenever you need it. So like it sounds good and all that, Derek White, he's been with the system. He's come up through the FIBA and Olympic system. Like he's one of our guys. But I just don't think that that's the game you want to play when it comes to the Olympics because you can easily lose it. Like our arrogance can come back to bite us because you and I, we're old enough to remember 2004.
Okay, but I would say this. Do you think losing was there anything that Kawhi Leonard brought to the table to this roster that they just no longer have without him? You know what I mean? Like, is it like one thing he does, or like, he was the one guy in this roster that did this? Like, we could look to Embiid, right? He'd be like, he's the one guy that he's different
There
from
is
everybody
one
else.
thing he does.
Okay.
And I guess you could try to say that Tatum does it, but Kawhi plays defense at the wing position, unlike many people in the league can play. Now, I don't know if he can still play like because of health reasons. Like, I don't, that maybe that's the reason he wasn't on the team. It's like, okay, your defense just isn't what it used to be because of your health. But in theory, that's what they lost in Kawhi. And I think Jalen Brown could have gave him that back because somebody's going to have to guard Luka. Somebody's going to have to guard these large, good scoring wings on the other teams.
And that's a good point because the closest thing they have to that, if I look at the roster, you got Tatum, that's his size, and that's the
Yeah.
closest thing to it. He's not as good of a defender as Kawhi, obviously, but in spurts he can get the job done. But we've also seen him, if you're playing a Luka or whatever, get cooked by Luka. But Luka cooks anybody, so that's just not really saying much. Anthony Edwards is a guy that would probably say the same strength level, but he's just a little shorter. So when you put that together, Jaylen Brown would be the perfect thing, right? He's strong. He's about the same, close to the same size as Kawhi with the long arms, athleticism. Derek White is a bigger guard, so I can see why they would, want to utilize him. And unless I'm missing somebody else, they really didn't have another guy kind of like the Derek. I mean, they have Drew Holiday, but I mean, to have both of those guys, and I think both of those guys, I think it's the way that they play. I think it's less about the type of player than it's the way that Derek White does play. And he plays in a complementary way where, look, let's be honest, we've never had to see Jaylen Brown in a situation. I guess the present day Celtics were pretty good in terms of moving the ball and stuff like that. So not to say that he couldn't do it, but this would be a different level of talent on the court. And there would be a lot of times where he'd be relegated to just basically standing in the corner and just defending. And I think he would be okay with doing that, but how effective he would be, and then the playmaking piece of that, I don't know. It could get interesting, but I definitely do think I'm nitpicking. I don't think Derek White's a bad selection, to be fair, but I do think Jaylen Brown was the selection I would have made. But we heard about the stuff with Nike. Now, do you think there is some truth to some of that stuff where Nike could have some influence here? And we know how big Nike basketball is to Team USA basketball. And for those you don't know, they've basically been connected with it for, the better part of almost 20 years at this point. So do you think that had any factor in it at all? Or do you think they just made this purely just some basketball decision?
I think it probably had like a 5 or 10% factor into it. And how I think the conversation went was, hey, Nike, we're thinking about adding Jaylen Brown to the team. How do you feel about it? And I don't think they would necessarily say no, but I think they would have said something like, well, he's not our first choice, but okay. I think they would have gave some kind of indication like that. Like, if you can go another route, that would be the preferred route that we would like to see you take. So I think it was something along those lines.
And it's funny. I think if let's just use a situation like this. Let's say Kawhi was a guy that wasn't on the team, but for some reason somebody who dropped out and you needed to replace him. The difference talent level between Kawhi and Derek White would be that's a vast difference where you'd be like, hey, he might not be a big fan of Nike, but like he's this that good that we're just willing to do it. They're kind of telling me that the difference between Jaylen Brown and Derek White, talent wise, might be a difference, but in terms of how they would contribute to the team, is not that much differently for the potential headache that maybe or may not could be caused by Jaylen Brown. Because I'm not going to say that Nike's looking to control all these guys or anything like that, but Jaylen Brown's certainly an athlete that's proven that, hey, if there's something that he doesn't like, he doesn't really care what stage he's on. He's going to really say something about it and doesn't care if it's going to ruffle any feathers. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that probably concerns Nike a little bit, and honestly, it probably concerns the Team USA a little bit as well. But again, don't let the hubris get us because if I and I'm hoping I don't want this, but if somehow we were able to come up short in this Olympics, that's going to come back to bite you in the you know what. Like everybody's going to point to this. Like why was he not on the team? Why was one of your best American players not on the team?
I think the only way they can come back to bite you is if they just lost to some situation where they were some wing just absolutely cooked them. Which the amount of wings that they have on this team, I don't even think that's going to happen. One, and then two, they're not losing. You and I both know they're not losing. Listen, they're not losing. They got to get Steph Curry this first Olympics, his first Olympic gold here. I don't just think there's a situation where they're losing. I know they had the close game. Here's the thing I was going to mention though about Team USA, and it's the I think everybody kind of like sees this and knows this, and I'm not just saying this based off of the two games because this is something that we probably thought was going to happen coming into the tournament, but they're gonna have to figure out a way to because it seems like they play better without Embiid on the court. I'm just gonna say it. And Embiid's the most talented center that they have, but he kind of slows the pace down, and his game isn't,
Not no
I think,
kinda.
really. Yeah, I'm trying to be nice. Trying to be nice. And his game isn't really suited for the international game. in a way like Jokic's is and stuff, and not just because of the passing, but just the pace, man. And then defensively, I mean, do you remember how elite of a rim protector he used to be early in his career with him
Yeah.
just like moving and stuff? And I know the injuries and stuff, so I'm not making an excuse. Like I'm not saying he's not trying because he definitely is. I mean, he was just getting attacked on the pick and roll over and over. Did you see what Josh Giddey was doing with Australia? I mean, they were just like in that job coverage, they were just like, we're just gonna go out and beat every time. He's just not able to move. And then as big as Embiid is, he's not a really necessarily a great rebounder at this point in his career anymore, too, because I think also because of these injuries. And it just seems like unless he's dominating on the other end, it just doesn't seem like there's a lot of situations where he should be playing like a bunch of minutes at once. That's one thing. The second part of it is, to be fair, he's the one ace in the hole that they have that they're just going to play a certain team or two that's just too small, and they can just throw the ball into the post. And you see what every team does when they throw the ball into the post with him. They just freak out. They just freak out and double team, and then it just creates a rotation, and then they're able to get good shots. So like he may not be dominant scoring, but that presence alone does matter. So I don't want to understate that. And then the third and final thing, and then I'll let you go into any direction here because I've touched on a lot of things. Kawhi's not playing because of some injuries. If I'm a Philly fan, am I happy about Joel Embiid playing in the Olympics? Because I'm like, why is nobody ever talking about that? I'm like, the amount of injury history Joel Embiid has, specifically going into every single playoff run, where this is kind of a maker or to break it year, where you got a lot of talent. Paul George has now come over. We need you to be healthy. You've already won your MVP. The regular season and what he does really doesn't mean much to us anymore as fans. When it comes to Joel Embiid, he's got to produce in the playoffs. He's got to get to a conference finals. He's got to get to a finals. He's the only great player in the East that hasn't done so. It's put up or shut up time, and you're playing in the Olympics. Now I understand him wanting to play in the Olympics, and that's a great accomplishment and winning a gold medal for him. But if we're talking about Kawhi and low managing and him not being able to play, why should Joel Embiid be playing with his injury history?
So I think that you will be a little bit concerned, but it's not the level of concern that you would have with the Clippers and Kawhi. And that's just merely because he's always hurt in the playoffs, but Joel Embiid still plays. And when Kawhi gets hurt, he's just like they shut him down. Like
Joel Embiid,
he's not
he
playing.
still plays barely. You saw him this past postseason.
I know, but I'm just saying, like that's you can't say he doesn't play. So I'm just saying, from a trying to argue it perspective, I don't think you could be quite as mad with him as you would with Kawhi Leonard. But there's still a lot of concern because again, you're right. He looks a
Let,
lot different in the postseason. He
let me
looks
let me ask you a question flat out. If Joel
mhm.
Embiid was on the Magic, would you want to play in the Olympics? Yes or no?
No, no,
Okay. So the fact that you're able to answer that quick, I know it's different levels, but I'm just saying I just haven't heard this even being brought up at all. That's what was
because it's the
confusing to me.
Olympics. Like nobody's going to say, "Hey, we don't want him to play," because then it's like, well, then you don't love your country, and you get into that kind of social political discourse. I don't think anybody wants to open it up. So like
You don't love which country because he has some choices now.
he does, but I mean, come on, let's not play this game.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna leave that alone. But he has some choices. But yeah, so that's my main concern with him. But yeah, in terms of on the court, what do you think about him and the fit? Because I'm sure you're probably in the same direction I am. We're
Yeah, I
watching the
don't love
same
it.
thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like you said, he slows down the game. I don't love it, but I mean, there are times where, again, like one of the big opponents when you got to play, we might have to face Jokic. You're just going to need somebody bigger. So like, you at least need somebody with his size as a security blanket because we've seen AD try to guard Jokic, and that just it doesn't work.
What lineup that I've again, they're trying different lineups. They're playing halves and halves and stuff like this, the AAU. So this isn't really gonna how it be. You know what lineup I sneaky like, and I don't know what situations they'll use it. I kind of like that lineup that they rolled out with. They've done it a couple times now with AD at the 5 and then Bam at the 4. You seen that lineup? And then they
I've
just put
seen
like
that, and I like it as long
I,
as they like it. Are they willing to play that position? That's the real question.
so what I mean, they seem both willing, and like I've even seen them do the pick and roll between those two, and it's like, you would think you're like, two really non-shooters, but then if they put like three shooters around them, like you put like a Curry and either a D Book and maybe a Braun and whoever else they got. I mean, there's so many talented guys, and honestly, that lineup where they had it with like I think it was like Halliburton out there. So you got a point guard that's like willing to push the pace and pass first. With AD, that's a lob threat. Bam's a lob threat. They can both shoot mid range jumpers. They can hit an occasional three, both of them. I'm like, And then what I think about is what that lineup looks like on the other end. I'm like, well, you got those two guys there that are both bigs that can guard the rim and switch on perimeter guys. I mean, like, it just gives you a lot of positional versatility. And then you got the Drew Holiday and Derek White, if because you know what's going to happen. They're going to play some country with some little fast guard that's like tearing everybody up, and that's where you got Drew Holiday and Derek White. Like they're there to stop that. And then you got some of these bigger teams. And then the wing thing is a situation like you said that may be the thing that maybe we look back on and be like, man, that was something that we missed. But I don't know. I'm okay with what they've got on the roster so far, and I don't think there's a situation. I mean, there's a situation they could lose. I should say that, but I just don't see them losing. Did you have any concern watching any of the two exhibition games, like particularly the Australia one when they smoked that big lead?
No, like you said, they had the lead. And again, the same sentiment that you have for summer league. I don't really look too much into these exhibition games as long as everybody's healthy and they come out of this in one piece. I think that's a good sign. Heck, had they even lost the game, I really wouldn't have been concerned. I do think that you might see something in the exhibition game, like, okay, where US plays better when they push the pace, or okay, we do need to slow the game down, so we might need to use MB some more in the second half. Like those sort of things. But like overall, I don't lose any sleep over it. Like I said, it's an exhibition game. I'm pretty sure a lot of these guys that we watched the other night during this exhibition game, they weren't going much harder than they were playing an All-Star game.
Well, Australia was definitely trying really, really hard. You see Josh Green and Dante Exum, they was out here diving for loose balls, so they
I
was
mean, but
doing.
the other team's always going to try hard. This is their Super Bowl.
Oh, you're right. You're right. You're talking about just us. Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm talking about strictly the US team.
Yeah. They're just kind of going hard in spots and then just kind of getting the rhythm together. Yeah, so I definitely agree with that. I mean, I'm not too concerned with USA team. By the way, people probably don't remember, but in 2020 in the Olympics, we did lose that exhibition game to Nigeria. Remember that too. So, you know, even if they lose an exhibition game, not the end of the world. Not the end of the world at all. So I think they'll be okay. They're in a good spot. Um, we didn't talk about Bronny and the Jalen Brown comments. I wanted you to get your thoughts on that because, and for those who didn't see it, Jalen Brown, got caught on camera. I don't know who's doing the lip syncing situation, but caught him on camera. He wasn't really trashing Bronny, but essentially said Bronny he doesn't think he's an NBA player and he's kind of getting this opportunity with the Lakers because of his dad. Jalen Brown did tweet about it and basically clarified it. Didn't take anything back, but he was saying, hey, he'll get every opportunity, to compete with the Lakers. I mean, I know you don't really feel any type of way about it, but how does this kind of like fit because it's Jalen Brown saying it and what we've just all talked about with Jalen Brown? Does that even matter? And then what do you
It
think
doesn't
as
matter.
well? It does matter?
No, it doesn't.
Okay. And then what do you think as well, just with Bronny overall from what you've seen? I mean, I know it hasn't been great, but what you've seen in Summer League.
I mean, I kind of feel like Jalen Brown. I don't like the idea that this kind of private conversation really made its way to public light. I don't think he was trying to trash Bronny. Hence the reason I believe he put out that statement because I think he just wanted Bronny and his team to know like, hey, I'm not here trashing the brother. I don't want him to feel bad about what I said. I was just making, a regular conversation with the two individuals who came to the game with. But I mean, if you want to look at his comments and judge him strictly on what he said, he's not telling a lie. Like, I'm as big of a LeBron fan as there can be in the world, but his son does not look like an NBA player now. But I will also say, I would think at least 9.9 times out of 10, the 55th player does not look like a real NBA player in their first summer league showing. Like, they just don't. The man was drafted 55th. That means he almost wasn't drafted. Like, it kind of just he's kind of meeting expectations. I know people putting like crazy expectations on him because of his name, but when you really think about it and just erase his last name, if you just look at him like as Bronny, okay, he's the 55th player. He's 6'1". He only averaged 4 points in college. He's kind of playing how you would expect him to play.
Even going back to the high school days, Bronny's never really been a go-to get a bucket type of guy. That's just not his game. And if he's going to find a niche in the league, it's going to be as a role player. You know what I'm saying? Hitting open shots, but really defending and playing with a lot of energy and hustle. And that's what he's been doing. So I don't have any complaints about how Bronny's playing. He's playing exactly like for the people that have watched him, how he's supposed to be playing. And also too, like you said, it is summer league. Will he make more shots if he makes the NBA roster at some point? Yes, because he's gonna be playing with better players, i.e., his dad, that commands double teams and attention all the time. So you're gonna get some open shots. So I'm sure you'll have a lot of time to get in the rhythm. But when it's the summer league, it's not like you're playing with a lot of great players, that are really like taking the top off of defense and like commanding this attention that you're gonna get all these open shots. So I think Bronny's gonna be fine. You know, I think he's exactly where he should be. He's got a guaranteed contract. He's probably going to be a G League guy, and then you could just grind and develop. And from everything that we know from Bronny, from what he's talked about, what we see him do, he's grinded, and I don't expect that to be any different. So we just got to kind of wait and see what that process is going to be like for him. Yeah, and then the Jaylen Brown comments are, they are what they are. If you're not going to like Jaylen Brown, you're not going to like him already. I don't think the comments really change, too much on it either. So. But Trey, before we get out of here, we haven't really touched on a lot of WNBA stuff in a while. I've been watching a lot of Chicago Sky games. I told you that's the team I'm locked in. I'm locked in on the Sky. I watch most of their games now. I'm locked in onto the Twin Towers, Cardoso, Angel Reese. I got to do a little defending on the Angel Reese thing, Trey, because I'm sure you saw the rhetoric of the Angel Reese double-double situation where she's just getting her own misses. I'm sure you see that. I just got to address it because I'm actually watching these Chicago Sky games, so I feel very confident in saying this. Okay, they're not wrong. All right, I'm just going to be real. They're not totally wrong. But we've talked about it. Angel Reese doesn't have the greatest offensive game, but she's not just getting all her misses. What she's doing is contributing defensively, and she's hustling to get these rebounds. And it's to the point where like people are just like not even looking for the ball; they're just searching for her to box her out. So, and this is not off of just all her misses. So I gotta say that she's played well. Obviously, Caitlin Clark's picked it up as of late too. Got to give her credit; she's played well, and both of those teams are actually winning some games. Here's the question: Rookie of the Year. I know you don't have to decide today. They're going to get a little bit of a break between the Olympics and then coming back for the second, half of the year there. Who you got with that award? Because I really think I can make a case that this could be a Cole Award right now. And not just because we would just want it to be, but like that's how close it is.
So I think I would lean towards Angel, like 51% to Caitlin 49, just because of how many double doubles she had in a row and just because of how tenacious she is and getting those rebounds. But I'm not gonna say she's doing it intentionally, but she is padding her stats a lot. I think you and I can both agree when she's just missing the shots and getting her own rebounds.
But that's to me, is that padding stats if you're not doing that on purpose? Because she's not missing it on purpose. She's just not a great finisher around the basket, particularly around girls that are bigger.
Okay, which maybe padding her stats, you're right. Maybe that's a strong word.
Because I don't want to say that.
But it's not as impressive. It's not as impressive.
Yeah. The Angel Reese thing is you can look at some of the stat lines at the end of the game and be like, oh, 14 points, 18 rebounds, like she was killing it. When you watch the games, you could definitely see her impact on the boards and defensively and stuff too. That's why I keep mentioning that. She's also an excellent passer. She has impacts on the game. It just doesn't look in the same way, obviously, in the excitement that Caitlin Clark gives you. And, she just doesn't have an advanced offensive game. So she's just getting a lot of layups. She's a lefty, so she does miss some right-handed layups under the basket. It's not the greatest thing ever, but the numbers are the numbers. So it's like that kind of that thing between, do you want to like value the numbers more or just kind of the eye test? Because I do think the eye test tells you that she still does have an impact.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, it's easy to see that she's very impactful. I mean, if Caitlin Clark was not in this rookie class, hands down, she would be the rookie of the year. But again, she is going against Caitlin Clark, and Caitlin Clark is a good player, especially when you're looking at it just as a rookie. And like you said, I'm honestly in agreement that it probably should be a Cole Award if it was going to be awarded right now. But I would give Angel Reese the slight edge if for whatever reason they're like, you know what, we just can't do a Cole Award. We need to give it to one person. I would give Angel Reese a slight edge, but it's a thin margin.
It's so close. Like I said, I wouldn't be mad. I don't know if the last time the Co in the NBA was it the Grant Hill Jason Kidd one in like '95, I think.
Yeah, I believe that's the last one.
And I'm honestly, I know it just like fits the perfect narrative because people have pitted Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark against each other, but it honestly is that close. Like it literally is that close because Caitlin Clark has come on strong. If you look at her stats as well, and even watching the games as of late, I think I might go with the Dawn Staley thing though, and which was the greatest point. Which she basically, I don't know if you saw, but she basically was like, "Hey, whoever leads their team to the playoffs, they get it." So I can't be mad at that either. Like, if it's this close, if Caitlin Clark gets her team to the playoffs and Angel Reese's team does not, if it's close, maybe the tiebreaker goes to Caitlin Clark. Maybe it goes to Angel Reese if she leads the Sky to the playoffs. So, you know, I'm gonna include the team part of it too, because when we talk about MVP and stuff, especially in the NBA, we always include the team record and stuff too, right? Like that always matters. So I don't know, it's so close to call, but at the end of the day, we're gonna be having this conversation ad nauseum at the end of the year, and this is what we want, and it's good for the sport, right? So I mean, we're gonna be getting that regardless. So I don't think anybody is gonna be, one person's gonna win the award, but the league is gonna win at the end of the day. So that's going to be something to look forward to too. But I want to thank everybody so much for joining us once again. Of course, we're on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, so keep an eye out for that. We'll drop some shorts for you guys as well, some polls. Definitely want to interact with you guys on social media. I know it's the summer. No, it's usually slow with the content, but we're still going to be providing you, with a bunch of content, especially with the Olympics going on. Trey, I'm gonna be paying attention to some other Olympic sports as well too. I'm gonna tap into some gymnastics. I see what's the guy who used to play in the NBA? He's gonna be doing the beach volleyball. Like I like just dabbling into some events too. Is there any events you kind of keep an eye on in the Olympics? Because some of them we act like we big fans of it once every 4 years. I'm gonna act like I've been watching gymnastics all this entire time.
Oh, I do this every time because I'm a big fan of track and field, like that 100, 200. I'm watching.
Yeah, you tapped in. You ain't watching that one qualifier, but as soon as the 100 meter come, you're gonna be watching that for sure in the Olympics. So,
don't know who in there, don't care who in there, but I'm watching.
Yeah, I was like that when Phelps had his run with the swimming. We was all tapped in as if we cared about what anything was going on with U.S. swimming. It's just crazy, but yeah, we're gonna be tapping into a lot of the Olympics conversation as well as we go along throughout the summer. So tap in with that as well. I can't even finish my sentence, so I'll swing it to Trey.
Like you said, man, we're on all the major platforms. Thank you so much for joining us. Tap in, follow us on Instagram, interact with our posts. We really do appreciate it. We read everything, so we really want to get fans interaction. But like you said, man, until next week, peace.